I believe the video game industry is on the verge of collapsing. The signs are there, and if I'm right, the way we play games will change forever. At least that's my opinion. Let's take a look.
RetroCode TV.
Hey guys, this is Josh with RetroCode TV, and I wanted to talk about the current state of the gaming industry and why I think it may be on the verge of collapsing. The video game industry is on the cusp of a significant shift. While many people associate video game crashes with the retro game market, and for good reason, we had the crash of 1983 where basically companies were putting out garbage games and they saturated the market. This caused a big video game crash, which Nintendo ended up saving with their Nintendo Entertainment System, which came out as more of a toy than it was a gaming console. That's kind of how they sold it to the audience. But I believe a crash is looming for the modern day market. This won't be like a catastrophic crash or anything like that. I think it's going to be more of a soft crash with more of like a soft landing. Consumers will start to vote with their wallets, opting out of buying AAA $80 games, and will instead turn to services like Game Pass. Something similar to Netflix, where you'll basically pay a subscription and then have access to games. Unfortunately, the industry continues to prioritize profits over innovation. There are some exceptions to that, but generally we get a lot of the games that are coming out are just pushed really fast and they tend to be mediocre. I think most gaming will eventually be subscription-based, similar to Netflix, like I mentioned earlier. Rising production costs, game prices going up, it's all going up too quick and the economy cannot keep up. People's paychecks have not increased at the same rate. Instead of finding ways to lower prices, game companies are more focused on releasing games on time, and generally that's going to be at the expense of the game itself. Their mindset is, hey, release it now, we'll fix it later. Combine that with the push for microtransactions in a lot of these games, I think it's really just rubbing people the wrong way, and it's giving people a bad feeling toward video gaming in general. They're starting to not only feel ripped off at the price, but then you finally get the game, it's not done, it's not complete, it's got issues, or it's just mediocre, and they want to throw all these microtransactions in your face and try to make you spend more money. On top of all that, you have the whole digital game issue. The shift to digital games has created a major issue with customers who feel like they don't truly own the games that they buy. What happens when you buy a digital game that you really like, only to later want to play it and that service has been shut down? So now you either A, don't get to play the game at all, or B, you have to go and rebuy it on whatever service is up and running. The gaming industry's current model is at odds with what consumers expect. People believe that when they buy a game, they should own it and be able to do what they want with it. Right now, we're at this weird kind of point, especially with the Nintendo Switch 2, where you're buying a game that looks to be physical, but is actually just an access point for a digital download. So this really brings into question, do you own the game? What can you actually do with the game? It really just makes it difficult for people that just want to own the game. And that's becoming harder and harder to do these days with the whole digital game-only world that we're moving toward. I think people are going to get tired of paying these crazy prices for games, especially from these AAA developers that are, charging $80 and $90 for their games. There's going to be less people buying games. There are going to be more people going toward subscription-based services. There's going to be more people really appreciating and buying games from the smaller developers that are releasing $50 and $40 games. I'm sure you've seen the recent string of failed games like Concord and several other live service games that just really completely fell flat and ended up getting canceled or shut down shortly after release. This is kind of a sign of the industry's instability currently. Combine that with the overpriced games, the high production cost of these games, companies constantly laying off employees and shutting down studios. Consumers are basically just losing trust in the quality and value of games, and people are going to start looking for alternatives, which I think is going to be the subscription services route, the Netflix style or the Xbox Live Game Pass type stuff. These services will look a lot more appealing just to be in better priced and more flexible and offer a wider variety of games that people can have access to. It's just that the current model is not sustainable. You can't just keep raising prices of games and consoles drastically like that. I mean, literally, the economy cannot keep up. It's a numbers game. So there will be a drastic decrease in the amount of people that are gaming, at least as we know it, the typical way of gaming where you buy a game and you buy a console. That's why I think it's just going to go toward a subscription-based service. All your big companies more than likely will be making their own live service or subscription-based service. Something like Ubisoft or EA or Sony, they're all going to come up with, and some of them already do, but they're all going to come up with their own subscription-based service. And while a lot of these companies actually already have that, I think they're going to get a big influx of people signing up for that just so they can actually play games, because currently games are just too expensive. And that's why I thought that this current crash that I think is coming is going to be a soft crash, and the fact that the whole gaming industry won't just crash and cease to exist almost like it did in the 80s. It's going to be more of a transformative, transitional crash where the typical way of owning a game and owning a console is no more, and it's going to become a subscription-based service where you basically just pay monthly to have access to games. Now, something I'm curious about is how is this going to change the way games are produced? Are we going to see more indie titles? Is it going to be more profitable to have subscription-based services for these game developing companies? Or is it going to cause there to be a lack of AAA games? I'm really curious as to what impact this will have on the game production companies and development companies. Are we going to see game companies, do better because of this? Are they going to do worse? It's going to basically force them to change the way that they make games if this happens. Now, I'm not saying this is totally unavoidable. I do think there is a way that this doesn't happen, but it's going to require us, the consumers, the gamers, to vote with our wallets and not pay these $80 and $90 price tags for these games. We're going to have to force the game companies to lower their prices and to actually put out finished quality products. That's the only way we're going to avoid this future of subscription-based service gaming, at least in my opinion. For years, people were saying that the retro game market was going to crash. If you're a collector, and maybe you're not, but if you're a collector, that's what you heard for years. Oh, the retro game market is going to crash. But I really don't think that it is. Game prices have only gone up. Of course, you've seen some dips here and there where things have come down, but I wouldn't consider that a crash. That's just kind of how things work. But I don't think the gaming market and the retro side is going to crash. A lot of that is due to the reason that you can actually own the games. It's not a digital game. These are actual physical games that you can put in a physical console and play. There's a limited availability of these games, these retro games. A lot of them have not had a remake. Some of them had, but a lot of them have not. And a lot of them have not been re-released, been remade. So your only real option is to either buy the original or emulate. And a lot of people don't emulate or know how to emulate or want to emulate. They want something physical. And that's why I don't think the retro game market is going to crash anytime soon. The only time I think that the retro game market will crash is when the games become so old that they no longer work. For instance, when discs start to get disc rot and the data just kind of dies out on them and the disc no longer read, I think we'll then start to see a retro game crash, more or less just because the games are to the point where they're not playable anymore, and that will have an effect on the market. But other than that, I don't see the retro game market having any kind of significant crash. People know what these games are. People value these games. They have good memories with these games. And these are games that have stood the test of time. They've been around. They're tried and true and tested. And until the games are so old that they start deteriorating and no longer functioning, I don't think we'll see a crash. At least that's my opinion. But what's your thoughts on the gaming industry currently? Is it sustainable? Do you think there's going to be a crash coming? Do you think it's going to be more of a transitional crash? And what are your thoughts on that? I'm very curious to see what everybody else thinks about this. I think we're going to have a transitional crash, and unfortunately, it's going to go to a subscription-based gaming type situation. I'm not really for that. I prefer to have my games physically and to own my games. I am not in favor of a Netflix style or Game Pass style world where all we do is pay subscriptions and own nothing. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe for more videos. We'll see you later.